and Sharice will roll.
Afternoon. Heidi Kelly.
Present.
Jim Bobby.
Here.
Evan Campbell.
Here.
Sid Aaron. Here. Anna Liam. Here. Michael Ashman.
Here.
Charlotte Felice.
So we have a quorum. Okay, and I assume everybody had a chance to read the minutes from the September 15th meeting. I'd like to thank Christina for sitting in for me every day. And I will take a motion to approve those minutes. So Sid, second, Jim. Let's say which Jim now. Steve. All right, and I will take a motion to approve the agenda for today. Chris, second. Sid, all in favor? Aye. Okay. So, yeah, we're ready to roll. Yeah.
All right, I will, as promised to, I'll give a relatively brief overview of what's been happening on campus. I wanted to just draw your attention to the information, I won't call it the board packet, but the council. There is phenomenal information in each of the cabinet members' reports. I think we've already written the December message to campus. It's fabulous. So I just wanted to say again, good afternoon and thank you for joining us today. And I'll get this person to my left in a moment, passion, but as a few preamble comments, and we're moving into the final 4 weeks of the semester. And I want to begin with recognition and sincere appreciation for the work that's being performed by SUNY Plattsburgh's faculty and professional staff. Happens across our entire campus. 4 weeks ago, this is a critical point in the semester, and the contributions that are being made really support the momentum of our students as they make progress to degree attainment. And as a sort of an aside reflection, when I meet students in the fall, first week, I always say, how's it going? And they go, it's fantastic. It's great. This past week, it's like, oh God, I've got these papers due. But the theme that comes out in every one of these students, and it was a student I met at Market 32 who's working 20 hours a week to support her education. She goes, but it's all worth it. She said, I know when this is all done, I'm going to be in a much better place. So it makes sense. So those are the good stories. To our university council members, thank you for your community advocacy, your support, and certainly support for the progress that we're making together. And certainly grateful for all of your leadership. So as I've already given the hint, today's update reflects key themes that are shaping our momentum this semester, including areas of academic strength, student success, financial stability, community engagement, and institutional alignment with SUNY priorities. And in my report today, I'll highlight several developments across these areas, while our vice president and chief of staff provide deeper detail in their individual groups. So before going any further, I want to pause to acknowledge a transition that's occurring within our university council. For those of you who have been under a rock, I'll give you a heads up. Earlier this month, Michael Cashman, class 2003, the graduate class of 2003, was elected to the New York State Assembly to represent the 115th district. So first of all, this fulfills my diabolical plan to have cardinals infiltrate state government. So thank you. Again, Michael's district includes Clinton, Franklin County, and portions of Essex County. Michael had served, I can say that now in the past tense, as the town of Plattsburgh supervisor for 9 years, beginning in 2016, and his election to the assembly reflects his deep public service on earth. On behalf of our university, I want to thank Michael for dedicated service to this town over almost 4 years of service on the council, and for the partnership that he's built with SUNY Plattsburgh, not just as a council member, but in the time since graduating way back in 2006. So thank you, Mike, for all your work. And again, we look forward to continuing our work with him role as he advocates for higher and higher amounts of funding for the SUNY system. So thank you, Michael, in advance for your advocacy. Michael, anything you'd like to say?
Just really briefly, Alex, thank you for those kind words. And I wanted to come in person, because my journey into public service actually began here. Through the student association, from one essay to another, from student association to state assembly. It really is quite humbling. To come from a working family, class family, first generation college student, to be able to have been sworn in the chambers. But rather regurgitate SUNY Plattsburgh's mantra, I think it's very fitting that SUNY's mantra is to learn, to search, to serve. And I look forward to serving you folks as my constituents in a new way. And if there can be anything that I can ever do for the university or you, please do not hesitate. My door is always opened. But from a grateful heart, my wife and I thank this university for giving us so much. And in fact, later this week, she and I will be celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary. So share that combination because, you know, we didn't just choose a community to live in, we chose a community to serve in, and we're very blessed. So thank you.
And since we're on the topic of university council, Michael's election creates a vacancy within the council. And I just need to acknowledge this, and I know that Heidi is acutely aware of this.
I'm just going to interject another vacancy.
And then there's an old line, but who's counting? The individual who supports this is the governor's office, Ali Webanaro, and Ali and I have had a conversation. Ali is acutely aware of this. There seems to be something that's going to review the agenda about you and Sid, but we'll get to that when it's your turn. But the point being is that Ali's very much aware there is a process. It's a mysterious process. For those of you on the council, you know what you went through, and you may not have experienced the same process going through it as the person sitting adjacent to you. What Ali said is, this can take time, and based on recent experience, and Christina, and this can be a 12 to 18-month process. So, and I've said one word: expedite.
Yes.
And I think that the track record within SUNY in the last, I'll say 8 to 10 months, there have been much more expedited appointments made, and Jim may be able to give us a little bit of information about that. Just that. But the good news is that Ali, we're on her radar. She's aware of this. I hate to say this. It's a work in progress. So thank you.
May I add that Heidi and I have both, and Heidi said it much more eloquently than I did. We both volunteered and said we'd stay until our positions were finished because we're worried about a quorum. That is an issue. So 18 months, Heidi.
Or sooner.
After 15, 17, 18 years.
Yeah, heading into 18.
Yes.
All right. Well, the good news is I still have more report to give. So, and I'll find a way to lift your spirits. So next, I want to recognize.
Thank you.
Recognize the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for leading incredibly powerful observance of Black Solidarity Day on November 3rd. Now the 4th year on this event has grown into truly a full-day social justice teaching featuring more than 50 campus and community-led sessions. And I think the problem we have now with this is there's too many good things happening at once. You've got to almost flip a mental coin as to which one you're going to go to. So it's almost a divide and conquer. So if you use a buddy system, you can double your impact in terms of visiting sessions. This year's wonderful program, again, demonstrated our commitment to building inclusive and equitable and engaged campus culture, a place where every member of our community feels a sense of belonging. I also want to acknowledge the additional equity training and awareness initiatives that are highlighted in today's DEI report, and including expanded equity advocate training and cross-campus partnerships that strengthen the learning and support of our campus. Shifting gears, as many of you know, this fall, the university completed a structural realignment within the office of the president. I have established, maybe someday we established the role of chief of staff and director of executive communications and appointed Heather Haskins to lead this newly unified portfolio. So congratulations. This change strengthens the university's executive operations in several significant ways. First, it aligns all presidential communications, crisis response, and institutional messaging under a single point of coordination. Second, it improves the alignment with SUNY system priorities and expectations. Third, it consolidates the legal liaison responsibilities, coordinating all communication with the SUNY Office of General Counsel within a consistent and accountable process. And fourth, it maintains continuity of leadership of our strategic communications and marketing divisions while expanding capacity for campus-wide executive coordination. So thank you, Heather, in advance for all your work on this. And as noted in the reports that are shared with you, this unified structure has already enhanced our efficiency, it's improved message consistency, and it's strengthened coordination across the divisions. And these improvements position our university to respond more effectively to emerging needs and support clearer and more stable institutional processes. So, the joke I've been telling for several years, Alex, how's your enrollment? How's your budget? How's Clinton? I officially end that today. Clinton is no longer a point of conversation. They're here. So what I am going to do is just talk about enrollment. Our enrollment picture remains stable and essentially demonstrates a trajectory that is incredibly encouraging. Final fall 2025 census data is in, and we have 4,561 total students. That includes 3,831 undergraduate students and 730 graduate students. And if you're looking for a deeper dive into that, I would reserve your questions for when Karen McGrath presents her portion of today's meeting. Our enrollment has increased by 3.3% over the past 2 years, and our online and Queensberry programs remain important contributors to the wider access and curricular flexibility that we're seeing. As I have emphasized since day one, living in Plattsburgh, those of you who attended my presentation over in Guilds Hall, my slide deck was really long. It's 2 slides. First slide had my name on it. The second slide had 3 letters, EEE. Enrollment, equity, and engagement. Enrollment, next now to retention. And that's now a central focus for our campus. I'm pleased to report that our first to second year retention rate has risen to 74.1%. And that's the strongest since the entering cohort 2019. More encouraging is the retention rate for our North Country students and EOP students, which has also increased significantly. And that reflects the impact of targeted support initiatives on student success. Our student recruitment cycle is already showing promising early momentum. For admissions, it's already 2026. We saw that this weekend. Applications are up more than 20% year over year during the free SUNY application week. And I want to thank our ESS leadership and all of campus partners who support these outcomes. In particular, we had a very successful open house just 2 days ago, right, Karen? In which we saw more than 300 prospective students and their families in attendance. So enrollment is a really important component of the conversation we have at this campus, but we know that relevant and up-to-date academic programs draw new students to study here at SUNY Plattsburgh. So academic affairs continues to advance several strategic initiatives that strengthen academic excellence, new program development, and partnerships. The Academic Planning Steering Committee is working to integrate campus priorities with SUNY's new academic. You'll be hearing a lot more about that campaign as we roll into the early part of next year. But that alignment will help us strengthen timely degree completion. It will expand high-impact learning experiences and will remove barriers to success and also improve pathways that support student persistence. So stay tuned for more information about academic momentum. It already has its own acronym. The right way to call it. They call it ACMO, ACMO. So more on ACMO. I also want to acknowledge notable academic program milestones, including final approval of the MS in accounting, which will welcome its third class of 2026. So thank you, Marcus, and thank you to the folks at FBE. We also are seeing continued progress under the new STEM designated BA, which is now under SUNY review. These initiatives reflect the forward-looking leadership of our faculty and deans. Innovative and updated programs serve to improve our university. Our new director of the Center for Instructional and Program Innovation, John Locke, is now leading a unified approach to coalesce teaching excellence, instructional design, and technology-enhanced learning. John's leadership and expertise will be central as we expand online program development and meet the rising standards for accessibility and instructional quality. Today's academic affairs report also highlights impressive community-based and interdisciplinary outcomes. These include the launch of a student-initiated nonprofit addressing local food insecurity, several collaborative research initiatives, and regional programming at our Queensbury campus. These efforts exemplify our mission and our incredible impact on the North Country. Shifting to administration and finance, our financial outlook remains steady. SUNY has reaffirmed SUNY Plattsburgh as a financially responsible institution. The 2025-2026 budget is now fully reflected in business intelligence, or as some folks say, BI, and training for account managers is underway to support stronger financial oversight and transparency. I want to acknowledge Vice President Megan Rennebeck for delivering a clear, thorough, and highly informative campus budget presentation earlier this month. Megan's presentation outlined the progress of our stability plan, explained all funds budget model, and provided important updates on completed, current, and upcoming capital projects. And I would say, please look at the report and you will find it's at least 2.5 pages of capital projects that are happening on this campus. And based on my quick math, a few $1 million worth, right? Just a few. Tens of millions of dollars investment for campus president. The session that Megan led elevated our overall understanding of our fiscal position and provided valuable context for the campus community. As I just mentioned, major capital projects continue to move forward. These include progress on our new student admissions center in Algonquin, a multi-year repair project at Myers and Yoakum, the launch of a campus-wide ADA accessibility study, improvements to the council board hall, preparations for upgrades to athletics, academic, and campus life facilities. I also want to note the successful transition underway within college auxiliary services. The sale of Twin Valleys facility to the Champlain Area Trails Organization has now been completed, and the dining services transition from Chartwells to Sodexo remains on track for December 15th of this year. In another area of the campus that's crucial to the work that we do, institutional advancement, Anne's leadership and her team have continued to grow our alumni engagement, donor relationships, and external support for our students and programs. Since July, more than 860 alumni, students, and community members have engaged through regional and campus events. Homecoming and Family Weekend drew nearly 1,400 participants and offered opportunities to celebrate both campus pride and reunion milestones. Jim, were you one of those milestones?
A little.
Is it 50? Yes. Sorry, a little frog in my throat. Institutional advancement has also secured more than $2.2 million in new gifts and commitments, significantly outpacing last year at this time. The division continues to strengthen stewardship, expand alumni in the classroom initiatives, and support visibility for academic and experiential programming. These achievements demonstrate the strength of our alumni community and the dedication of our advancements. Switching gears, talk a bit about pillar number 4 of our strategic plan. Our students continue to demonstrate strong engagement on campus and throughout the region. One powerful example is Project Help, our student-led community service clearinghouse. Last year, nearly 300 students did 5,000 hours of volunteer service across more than 300 events, partnering with dozens of local organizations and contributing meaningfully to the vitality of our North Country. This work reflects the core institutional value and reinforces our commitment to public service and regional partnerships. Personally, I think we have the best students in SUNY, so this is what we'd expect for these phenomenal students. Now I want to return to the University Council. As council members, you play an essential role in strengthening the connection between SUNY Plattsburgh and the broader North Country community. The council's guidance is the most powerful when it's connected to the community leadership each of you brings. One of the most important opportunities before us is retaining more SUNY Plattsburgh graduates in our region. This is an important piece to fill employment gaps that we have in our region. While the university prepares students with the skills and experiences they need, it is community engagement, your mentorship, and your local opportunity and connections that helps them put down roots. Your advocacy and willingness to help open doors to students and employers across the region are an indispensable part of this effort. As we continue to strengthen student success on this campus, your partnership in building these community pathways will play an increasingly important role in the long-term economic vitality of this region. It will help students see that the North Country is a place where they can build meaningful careers and lives after graduation. So as the 2025 calendar year comes to a close, SUNY Plattsburgh remains a campus that's focused, collaborative, and moving forward with very deliberate attention. We continue to see real momentum in enrollment, academic innovation, financial stewardship, diversity and inclusion, community engagement, and alignment with SUNY's priorities. Everything that is expected of us to support the broader mission of the State University of New York. As we enter these final few weeks and prepare for another inspiring winter commencement, I am grateful for the commitment and partnership of the council that make this work possible. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your continued leadership and support of SUNY Plattsburgh. I look forward to today's conversation. Heidi? Mike is back.
Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Enyedi?
I do have a question. You're talking about how Ally is the one that is, the governor representative. If we have anybody that we think may be a good fit for the council, should we prepare their name as a suggestion?
File it through me. Yeah, I think all of you have my text number. So just text me, say, hey. Happy to do that.
Any other questions?
There's new programs, I could probably wait for Dr. Ty on this, but for new programs, how are those being marketed, or is there opportunities or people looking for application to those new programs?
So the question can be answered both by Marcus and by Heather. So with respect to how we're marketing our new programs, talk about the new accounting program. So Marcus.
So one of the realities of the joy of being in SUNY is that we in a program we approved. So for example, the accounting program, it was almost a year ago that we were able to get the hold SUNY would review, because one other SUNY had said, I think it's the conflict. And once that was taken off, SUNY approved, New York State had approved, but then the accountancy board. So Heather, newly, we had a request for money in the budget in order to be able to market new programs, but to kind of keep it flexible so that we can respond intra-year, different from how our budget models normally work, because we're not quite sure when we'll launch it. So this program, fortunately, the approval came early enough that we'll be able to launch for fall of 26, but it's already a little bit late for the cycle. So it may be better to spend it next year for cohort 2. That kind of a Heather and Karen sort of decision from their wisdom and view. Academic affairs, we're not planning on hiring extra faculty for it until the students show up.
Gotcha.
We've already added it to our FP. So
Yeah.
So as soon as we got the approval, we were able to make all of our updates so that it appears on that. I know Heather's been working really closely on web content. And Jason Lee from accounting already had a list of current students who would be interested in it and most recent alums who would be interested in it. So I'm really feeling confident we're going to have a reasonable size cohort for the fall 26.
And how does it work for some of these master programs for 4-year students to transition naturally into those 2-year, even 3-year post degrees?
So it depends how they're designed. The only ones that are currently our 4+1 are our education programs. So they have a transition that's very natural. So when they have to declare that they want to continue, but they don't have to go through an application. But if I'm a current accounting major, I'm going to have to apply graduate program. So, I think as we look to build more programs, we need to think carefully about what are our pathways for current undergraduates have to more seamlessly, move into the graduate level, whether it's the social work program, clinical mental health, accounting, things like that.
But for example, we don't do that only with what we have here, but to help students throughout the SUNY system. So we just got approved a 3+3 with political science, and you all in law school. So a student would do 3 years here, and then already in their senior year, first year of law school, at a very affordable rate, and providing extra supports for them to study for the LSAT. So they'll get into UAlbany, which is highly selective. So, and we're trying to be very creative with that, where our resources, we're not going to be able to open a law school here. Another example is graduate nutrition, where it's a fairly small demand. It was expensive to add a program here, but we're partnering with the SUNY Comprehensives. So our undergrad nutrition students who do want to become a registered dietitian or an nutritionist or an RDN can have a seamless pathway. Some of those are accelerated, as Karen said. I like our BA/MST in education. Some are simply making sure that they just have all the pre. So it's not really accelerated, but it's kind of seamless.
Okay, we'll move on to my report. I'll go quickly. I want to thank Sid and Jim Campbell for agreeing to sit on the selection committee for the University Council of Distinction Award, formerly known as the Distinguished Service Award. But we got no nominations, so and some of that is on me. I think that I forgot about it and waited a little bit too late to get together with Heather and Therese and get the word out. So next year I really would start looking for nominations or earlier in September. We're able to get them out. So I want to jump ahead for just a second to the university council seats. I don't want anybody to think that I don't enjoy them. But as I said to Sharice, I've been on for so long, and Sid's been on for so long, and agree that sometimes you need new blood, so that's where I think we're at with that. But I certainly think that I don't enjoy the work that I do and appreciate working with all of you. So we'll see where we get with Ally. It is it's a very long process. But it's great if you can come up with some names that you can beat her. That's good. I don't know what the process is down there. I don't know how they come up. And then I also want to thank Jim for going to the ACT conference in October that I couldn't attend, but he came back with some interesting things, and he said, well, what do we do to for orientation for new members? They come to the meeting. It's I don't know. When I went on to in 2008, Dr.
That's good.
Etling, Dr. Etling. Yeah. See, that's why I need to go off. I guess. Dr. Etling called me up and said, hey, yeah, the term is 6 years, which I found out like 2 years ago. No, the term is 7 years. And he said, well, you come to meetings 4 times a year, and then we have a retreat, and you listen to the reports, and, congratulations. And that was my, and I that's how I roll. But Jim, 2 years ago, do you have one of these, Christina? Did you get one? Yeah, somebody passed these out to us, which is a nice sort of summary of what council members' responsibilities are, what the term is, how you can serve as a council member. And Jim brought some back from from the meeting and so Sharice is trying to get a way to order them so that when new council members come on, we can, I can sit down with them and go through it. So that will be our orientation. So Jim, do you want to, take a couple of minutes?
Just while we're on the topic of the handbook. I'm on a committee with a former Assemblyman Bob Sweeney. We're going to be looking at this handbook to update it, possibly update some of the roles and responsibilities as they're indicated. And we're also going to look at the statute. Is the statute really current, up to date, what is expected from council members? Because you got to remember, the statute is probably good 20 years ago, maybe it was touched. So we're going to spend some time on this. So anybody who has suggestions as to what they'd like to see in this particular publication, please let me know. We do have a committee of 3 people right now. And as a result of showing up at the ACT meeting, I had they roped me into becoming secretary on the executive for ACT. So we have monthly phone calls with the executive committee on ACT. And so I will remain engaged in this as much as possible. And then I'll report back to you guys when I think there's important information that we need to share from an ACT. To Heidi's point, the very first meeting we had when we had the conference was with the governor's office, the appointment secretary, Allie, and Will Schwartz, who's SUNY systems guy in charge of government relations and election. We spent an hour and a half just talking about the appointment process and how it's getting better, believe it or not. They tell us it's getting better, that they've really dealt with the backlog successfully. But it does get bogged down because I believe it's still the case. Sometimes they have to go through the governor's appointee for the region. They may even go through the local Democratic committee chairs, to make sure whoever the campus wants to vet needs to be vetted by people other than the campus itself. So sometimes that bogs down the whole process in and of itself. But they did assure us that they want to move this along. The governor's appointment secretary was a lovely woman who wanted to really move this process along. They've gotten rid of a tremendous amount of the backlog already, even though we may not see it here, but at other campuses, it's critical, as you probably know, whenever a campus undergoes a search, really critical that they have a full board, university council on board at that. So I just wanted to mention that the chancellor was our keynote speaker at dinner. And I had never really had much interaction with the chancellor, but I came away duly impressed. His commitment to DEI was phenomenal. I mean, he's bucking the trend nationally, if you will, as is our president, I think. And it was refreshing to hear the chancellor be as strong as he was. He also went around to each table at dinner, introduced himself, wanted to hear from us as individuals. There were about 30 council members at the conference representing over 20 campuses, which isn't bad. 20 out of what do we have in the state house? 34 or something like that, I think, campuses. And a couple of presidents were there, a couple of chiefs of staff were there for next year. And it was a good interaction, a lot of networking. And from my personal perspective, I used to be the campus liaison, the SUNY system liaison for ACT for a good number of years. So it was fun to be back in the mix. And I also was reminded about Judy Dukin, our former council member here and former SUNY trustee. She was really a leader in ACT. Her whole career, she just promoted ACT dramatically, as did, and we were talking earlier about Gretchen Segan, who was also one of our former SUNY trustees, who was a local person and was on the university council way back in, I think, the late 60s, early 70s was when Gretchen was on the council. So that was really very exciting. We had three good panels, one on AI, one on mental health needs, and student services. They were all well attended. We had great speakers, and I'm trying to see if I can get the PowerPoints so I can share the PowerPoints with everybody from those particular those meetings. And then we also had scholarships. One of the highlights of ACT is we award students who the campuses submit nominees from time to time, and each student gets a nice award, and we also give them a little cash that they can donate to a charity of their choice. And it's always a very moving part of the ACT conferences when we do these scholarships. So our next meeting is going to be in Albany. It's going to be hosted by System next time, as opposed to a hotel. So it should be interesting. And like I say, I'm on the executive committee now, so I can bring back and forth whatever you guys need. And I included a copy of the agenda, so you see that. President Nader did a survey. Attached a survey. He surveyed campuses and college councils and the like. A lot of his findings are here. I don't want to go through them. I put the statement in one corner, so please bear with me. And something that's not really enforced to a great degree, but part of the handbook talks about college council submitting a summary, what they do on an annual basis to the system or to the board of trustees. Pat from Farmingdale, she's the president of it. He really pushes this. So she, of course, gave us a copy of her summary, to kind of like embarrass us all. But I don't know how many campuses pursue that or not. So, but I just wanted to share it with you so you can see what Farmingdale does, and it's quite an impressive. So that's the conference. Heidi, thank you for letting me attend. It was really a great opportunity. It was in my backyard, so I didn't have to stay overnight. I stayed at home. And it was really very enjoyable.
Well, thank you for going. And, you know, I mentioned that report to Sharice, and she did do a little research and couldn't find anybody that does that work. So, you know,
Well, it's something we can consider going forward.
consider, sure. Yeah, and so I'm hoping that, you know, as we go forward, we get our budget allows for 2 people to go to the ACT conference. And we couldn't, and nobody was available to go last year, but so I'm glad you were able to this year. Hopefully, going forward, we can send 2 people. I think it is important that we're there and, you know, interacting with people from other campuses, find out what's going on. So with that, I think that was all I had. I want to move on to get to campus governance. Sandra has to leave, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
And leave 8 minutes to get to another meeting. They're constantly overlapping on Mondays, but I did want to report a little bit about what happened at the last University Campus Senate meeting. It was held in mid-October at the College of Environmental Science and Forestry. And as always, there's lots and lots of things being discussed. And a few of the highlights and talk about some of the resolutions. One of the big topics of discussion, both formal presentations and then informally among the faculty and staff there, was the academic momentum program of, you know, because a lot of us were hearing about it there for the first time or hearing the details for the first time. And so we got a lot of details about, you know, what sort of the system-wide goals were, the goals based on the different sectors, so like comprehensive goals and all that. Hadn't seen individual level goals because those were sent to campuses. But for those who don't know, it's looking at things like, you know, 4-year graduation rate, 6-year graduation rates, and FAFSA completion and things like that, where they're wanting every campus to move towards increasing those. And so, you know, obviously this is a something every campus should be looking at. We should always be working towards that. One concern that came up among the faculty and staff was what are the consequences of not meeting the goals? And we don't really have an answer to that. And they couldn't give us an answer to that. They said they don't know what the consequences will be yet. So it would be nice to know what those consequences will be. But presumably that's coming. One of the other things that seems to have been reinvigorated that we heard a lot about in some of the presentations were re-looking at seamless transfer. And so looking, in some cases, they're going to look at the transfer paths, and some of it is like, you know, looking at policies, looking at GPA requirements, those sorts of things. So really kind of comprehensively looking at the seamless transfer process. It's something that it was probably even 10 years ago, maybe more than that they really put a lot of these pathways in place. And so they're realizing they need to revisit some of them and really kind of look at the whole thing again. I don't know where they're at with all of it. I know somebody from system reached out to me and asked if I would be involved in the sociology pathway because I had co-chaired it however many years ago it was. And so they're doing some of that even on that level of reaching out of like individual disciplines. They need to look at the pathways, but again, also looking more broadly at the whole process, at the you know, requirements of along the way. So those were a couple of the big broader things that we heard presentations on. Obviously, there's always concerns about budget, concerns about enrollment, so discussions of those sorts of things. There were then beyond presentations, there were a number of resolutions that were discussed and passed. One of the not necessarily the resolution, one of the revisions to the one of the policies and procedures that went through, something that I had been working on for a while, was a University Faculty Senate has a number of options to help campuses that are struggling with shared governance in some respect. And we revised all of our information about that so that campuses know what they can go to the University Faculty Senate to get help with. And so this can range from working on revising the bylaws and not quite sure where to start. So the like the parliamentarian from the University Faculty Senate can come to campus and help with some of that. Or if there's some particular question they're struggling with, the University Faculty Senate president will visit campus or will Zoom in and have meetings. So from that level of dealing with the individual issues that they're not quite sure where to start with, to at the furthest extreme of you know, a total breakdown in shared governance where they can send in a team to come in and do meetings with faculty and staff and administrators and do a comprehensive report, making suggestions. Sometimes that will involve someone from system as part of that team, sometimes not, but you know, writing a comprehensive report, making suggestions. So we revised all of that to make it more clear where campuses do have questions about, or are struggling with some aspect of shared governance, or just, you know, need some assistance on part of that. So we updated those guidelines and that was approved. And then there were a number of resolutions that were discussed and passed, that a fair number of them were about supporting shared governance nationwide. So resolutions about some of the issues that are happening, say in Texas and California, where there were sort of broader resolutions supporting the shared governance efforts in those areas, or resisting the attempts to overturn shared governance in certain areas like that. So a number of resolutions along those lines. There also within SUNY, there have been some issues of lack of support for shared governance at certain community colleges. So there was also some discussion of that and resolution in supporting the need for shared governance, strong shared governance at community colleges as well. And again, resistance to things like and I can never say this right, McMahon-Mailman Compact. So again, you know, a lot of resolutions just showing that we are against those sorts of things. And one resolution more local, not so much on the national issue, was asking for more support for campuses to comply with the Title II regulations on digital accessibility. That's something that some of you, I'm sure, have heard about, that we all have to be working to get compliance with, for faculty, it's really focused on all of our Brightspace sites, getting all of those, the access for, the digital access set up for our through the learning management system, which is quite an undertaking. And it has to be done by April 26th of next year, I believe. And so this is something, as campuses are talking about it, this is just a huge thing that faculty and staff are trying to work on. And so we were basically telling SUNY system, we need more support, we need more money, we need more resources. We need larger organizations like Adobe to help. We need textbooks to make sure textbooks are accessible if they're going to be linked into Brightspace. So basically saying campuses can't do this alone, faculty can't do this alone. We need a lot more help to make sure that this is accessible. So that's a very brief overview. If anyone has any questions, I can try to answer them. And if not, I have to take off. Yes.
I just want to thank you for inviting us to your local Senate meetings. I love it. But when's the next time Plattsburgh is going to host the University Faculty Senate? Has that date been established yet?
We just hosted it last fall.
You did, okay.
Yeah, so it's going to be another like 8 years or so before we host it again.
Thank you.
So yeah, we had really successfully hosted it pretty much a year ago.
Anybody else? Thank you. Okay, Bridget, are you there? I see your picture. Yeah,
She's on there.
Bridget, you're on.
Hi, everyone. Sorry. Yes, hi. Sorry I could not be there in person. We had our first snow day at Saranac Central, and to top it off, I have some sick kids here. So good, I guess a good thing it was a snow day for our household. But thank you all. I'll be very brief since I don't have too much to update we talked last. We had a new policy that we passed, a recording in the classroom policy. And I'll just give a little bit of context around this because we had a great discussion on what the necessity for this was and how the intention behind it was not to stifle students from being able to protect themselves, protect their ability to have a non-discriminatory classroom space that they're operating within. But we are seeing across the nation that our material and our intellectual property as faculty is being used against us in certain ways, and in some instances has led to firing of faculty, with students making recordings of their classroom material, of lectures, of them in educational spaces, taking those recordings, either editing them or cutting them to only have certain components of them shared. So taking information out of context, sharing those out into social media spaces, and it resulting in ultimately in firing of faculty in other states. So our faculty on campus was concerned with this practice and wanted to create some guidelines for not only ourselves but for our students to understand when it is and when it is not appropriate to record your faculty during classroom time. So we have created the recording policy, which essentially limits recording unless permission is given by the faculty member, or if there's accessibility resource implications. The student has an accessibility component to their learning education plan, which allows them to use recording. So that was a policy we passed. We are working diligently on an AI policy. It did come to Senate in our last Senate meeting. For those of you who are able to join from the University Council, I was so glad, and you'll continue to get those invitations to our local Senate meetings. At that meeting, if you were in, you heard a robust conversation around AI policy. We already have a new draft out, so our goal and our hopes is to pass that policy in our December meeting, as we know that we need to have something around AI to help both our students and faculty and staff understand how we're operating with these new tools in our learning environments. We were able to successfully elect 2 co-chairs to the vice presidential searches. So very excited that Chris Shamars is going to be our faculty co-chair for the VP of DEI search, and Kurt Gervich will be our faculty co-chair for the institutional advancement search that will be coming up starting later this year into next year. And last but not least, we're working on a resolution around scholarship. We did end up going into a closed executive session, so I don't want to talk too much about that in this recorded public space. However, we will have more information on that resolution coming forward. So if you're interested to see how that conversation develops, please come to our next Senate meeting. I think that's it. Yep.
I want to thank you for the invitation to go to the Senate meetings. I've been able to hit one, but I think you're interesting, and it's a way for us to keep issues that are important to faculty, and I appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Bridget? Okay, I hope your kids feel better.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your meeting.
And Michelle was not here.
No, she's in class, but report was sent and there's one in the folder.
Okay, so if you have any questions about Michelle's report, just reach out to her. Christy?
Hello. So we are continuing to coordinate professional development for our CSEA members and all employees on campus. Excel and Google. This winter, they're going to hold 6 more, and they're going to branch out with some additional trainings that are coming up that are needed for we had customized hoodies made for our members and gave them that last week. Everyone, they are the red with our logo from Strategic Communications and Marketing. We held a member meeting on the 12th. Approximately 120 members came for lunch and 15 members for the evening shift. We also gave away 5 Thanksgiving dinners and free gift cards. Our exec board continues to attend conferences. I recently in October went in Niagara Falls to the annual delegates meeting. I actually spent the weekend, this past weekend in San Antonio.
Any questions for Chris?
Just a comment. Yes, it was, it's only for business like business.
Wow.
It's great. Really good to see, you know, active. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Results.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the divisional reports. You all had a chance to read Marcus's academic affairs report. Does anybody have any questions for Marcus? Marcus, is there anything that you want to highlight from your report?
Yes, thank you. So I wanted to highlight the grant success, which will have a really significant impact on the North Country. The social work grants from the Health and Human Services Administration, Health Resources, HRSA grant. Most of the money, very little in indirect, most of it goes to support our overhead of lights and buildings. Almost all of it goes directly to support students with tuition and other students. So it also helps to drive enrollment and support you directly. And we'll also generate some research as well, I believe, the ones with grants for benefiting this in the North Country. So it's sort of like a win-win-win. The other thing I wanted to highlight, of course, as academic planning, I did not have a section in here really on that because we're still doing academic programs, but you know, our academic planning steering committee is still, but we decided as a committee unanimously to add an extra couple of months in order to spend some more time refining the draft. So we now plan on sharing the draft for public input, community-wide, including University Council, around about the 2nd of January. And then completing final edits based on that feedback around about early February, so that there'll be a more extensive plan with concrete recommendations. I also wanted to highlight, just explain academic momentum a little bit more. I didn't put it in the report because it's not just academic affairs, it's campus-wide. Karen and I are working on it. Elizabeth Bennett advising, Heidi Schnackenberg is a faculty person from Education, Health and Services. Meg Pearson, Dean of Arts and Sciences, and Kylie King from OIE. And the presidents were tasked with, in 3 weeks, coming up with a planning team of 5 to 7 people. And we need to come up with a plan by February 5th. So my plan is to share more detail on that. I'm the lead responding to SUNY for the campus on it, but to share more detail on that when we have a plan. As you've already heard, it's things like 4-year graduation rate, 6-year graduation rate, full retention, completing 30 credits in the first year, and important goals for our budget, our mission to serve students, modest goals that we have. One of them, for example, to get full to full is 70. We've got 74 already. 79.9 is very close to where we were. That go for progressing to 22. And so I think I'm very optimistic that we'll succeed in these important goals. I also wanted to I was not here, but I just wanted to let you know, if you really detail of the UDP report, you'll see that she mentioned 46% of academics on our campus are adjuncts, but I just ran of the 25-26 scheduling. About 78% of our course sections are taught by full-timers. So we do an adjunct faculty, which sometimes can be very good in terms of the experience of people from the workplace. But I didn't want you to think that almost half the classes are taught by adjuncts. The vast majority of the
Any questions for Marcus? And we will move on to the one institutional advancement.
So just a couple quick highlights, just to emphasize the point that, we had a very special event down at the Queensbury Branch campus recently where, Carrie Chapin Levine was a driver in planning this with Janet Acker. The new member of our social work faculty, Janet came to us from St. Rose. Along with some other faculty. And so what made this so special was the focus of the event was really to welcome St. Rose alumni, St. Rose social work program into the Plattsburgh. So it was really sweet the way the faculty kind of initiated it and were very direct in inviting their former students to come. One of the students actually designed a little logo with a cardinal carrying a yellow rose in its mouth as kind of the logo for the invite, and it was just really special. It was very personal. About 45 people that attended. Denise Mard went down and she did talk about the HRSA grant, announcing the impact of that program. So it was a very successful gathering. We also had an event in Long Island, and because it just happened last Thursday, I thought I'd mention that. We had approximately 50 people come out for dinner. The full dinner was paid for by one of our graduates, Gary Stevens, class of 79. The former CE student, accounting, and did his full career. He now serves on our investment committee, helps the foundation with investments. But, with the government shutdown and the flights, so I drove down. I confess, to be down to Long Island in a while. And I will say, at the tail end of that trip, right as I'm getting into heavy traffic, I thought to myself, this may have something to do with why it's hard to get our Long Island alumni to come to campus. It is quite a drive. But it was a great event, and there were a couple gifts that were made that night on the spot. So that was as we approach the year end, we're moving into our season of giving, season of purpose this year. So tagline, the teams encourage, especially faculty and staff, to consider making gifts to the Cardinal Cupboard, which helps feed students that have insecurity. Some emergency grants, so we're really focusing on vulnerable populations. And I know the council is going to be having a little tour, as I think, of the communication studios. So we're making some good progress. We are running an affinity campaign right now for the communication studies program. Equipment. So we have a very generous alumnus who has since passed, but Michael Mancino made a generous gift. 25,000 initially for so across the board, our alumni say again how their ability to get their hands on made them much more years. So, and ironically, there were a whole massive alumni at the Long Island event. So it's sometimes happy to answer any questions. For Annie.
I just want to thank Anna and her staff. They ran a great homecoming weekend. Like one of the best I've ever gone to. I think the attendance was really tremendous from my class of 75. And it was just a really well put together event. And we had a great time. So thank you, Anna. And to your staff and Paul and the gang. They were just wonderful.
Definitely relay that. And I will also bounce it to my colleague Karen. I think, the combination of homecoming and family weekend, bringing it together. That's where we, are able to get these amazing numbers. It's the collaborative effort, planning things for both alumni and families. A lot of the events, it was cool to see so many events like the Fall Fest, with just so many people milling around campus and visiting. Really,
A lot of us pined for parades and fireworks, but we've gotten over this.
oh, I hear that.
Okay. Thanks, Ian.
Yep.
Okay. Heather, you had a chance to read Heather's report and congratulations on the position. Do you have anything to highlight?
I think, I give you all metrics, so you can kind of see what we're doing quarter to quarter. But I think the big highlight for us is to be able to hire this director of marketing, which I'm doing closely with Karen and working with Marcus also to make sure that this person's really supportive of enrollment. Yes, it has really looking for a specialized person with that background and that skill set in this role. It's been an interesting evolution over my 4 years here to really figure out exactly how marketing supports each division. So I kind of feel like it's always trying to figure out what support can we give to which division in which ways. But I think that enrollment piece and the academics piece is crucial. So that's just been a really, I appreciate working to do that and to define this role, to make sure that it's serving not marketing, but enrollment. So it's a really interesting sort of relationship that, we don't have, our goals are the goals of the divisions, so it's always trying to figure out. So I think that we're hoping to get that search launched any day. I mean, it's going through the system now, so progressing, a search committee formed and exciting. Then I think just the other piece is just the value add to the campus of having this role where I've always worked with SUNY communications and now having the legal piece, which transitioned from Lauren Curry in Megan's area, who set up the process and has an airtight. So that transition was like, we did it in a day. It was seamless. Everything that needs to be taken care of is ready to go. And then the government relations piece, which we actually have a call with Will tomorrow, Will Schwartz. So I think that will be really helpful because there's such natural overlap between a communications issue that's also a legal issue, and then there was a government relations component, and it was always trying to find the right people on campus, like who's doing which pieces, and this closes so many gaps, and it allows for such a quick response time and a more thorough ability to say to all in cabinet, okay, here's what we've got, here's what we need. So I'm hoping that that's works the way it's in my mind. I think that'll be a big value. Happy to take any specific questions.
Anybody have any questions for Heather? Great, thank you. Is Dr. Friesen online? I see his name. He is not. I don't know if he's.
Yes, I'm online.
Oh, hello. It's time for your report.
All right. To be quite frank, I didn't realize that I had to do a report, but I'm happy to report that we had a very successful day of dealing with our Solidarity Day last week. As the president indicated, we had over 50 individual sessions that were well attended. We also had a keynote that was the Steppers. That was a very not only well attended, but it was a very well received day. We continue to work on our putting together our next level for in preparation for the search for the new VP that the search committee has been put together. We are also in preparation for the upcoming Martin Luther King Day services, as well as the racial solidarity today. With that, I'm open to any questions any of you might have.
Anybody have any questions? Dr. Bryson's report is in your packet. Any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. We're sorry you couldn't be here.
I apologize for not being able to be there.
Okay. All right. So, you all have Karen's report in your packet. Karen, there are things you would like to highlight?
Yes, well, thank you. Yeah, I know the reports from me are always long, but we're such an expansive division. There's always so much to say. Just to reiterate a couple of things that the president said, you know, our spring funnel is really important and it is shaping very. So, you know, we'll look to bring in 350 students, you know, on our budget target for the spring class, both between graduate, undergraduate, and then online degree completers, which will make up more of our new students. Our fall funnels are also in very good shape. One of the things that the president mentioned is us being up in applications year over year. And a big driver of that is, of course, SUNY free application weeks. Those applications to us are not free. We still have to pay our revenue share of our application fees for all of the free weeks. So we kind of lose money on that proposition financially, but it does increase our overall applications. And that is only for undergraduate students. But we are up 40% in applications, which may concern some of you, but we are not compromising quantity for quality. These are students who are duly qualified for admission to the university, but we've improved our processes, particularly leveraging all of our areas of technology to make it a much more efficient and effective process. We are actually mailing out our scholarship letters to all of our acceptances this week. It'll take time for the mailroom to get through them, but they will hit student mailbox more than a month earlier than last year. And we will also be issuing all of our financial aid packages of any FAFSAs that are valid by the early part of December, which again is more than 3 weeks ahead of last year. So process improvement is a really important part. You want to be one of those schools that are getting admissions offers and financial aid, so you're on that short list going into the holiday season. At the graduate level, we're also up in applications and acceptances. However, one of the things, and I talk to Marcus about this regularly, it ties also into the academic plan. So many of our graduate programs are in capped programs because of accreditation. So even if applications are skyrocketing in key areas of health or social work or school psychology, we still are limited to the numbers of new students we can bring into those programs. But that's why programs like the MS in accounting are so important. We need to expand our overall portfolio. So that's really important. As the president referenced, we did have a really great November open house. We had over 450 people here. The primary drivers of attendance were nursing, business administration, psychology, early childhood 1 through 6, and biology. That shows that is not shifting. Those have been the program leaders for the last, probably decade here. But also what was interesting, of the students that attended, 64% of them had already been accepted, which means we're again solidifying the relationship with them. But the other side of the coin is, of course, retention, and the president did reference that. First year students retained at a rate of 74.1%, which is up 1.3% over the year before. It is the highest rate since 2019. However, we saw a small dip in overall return rate of all students of 0.9%. And why that can be concerning is we don't know if it was a trend or a one-year anomaly. So we're working with the Office of Institutional Effectiveness to do more of a separation study. Why were students leaving? But one of the things you may recall from sitting through the December and the May graduation is we graduated more people last year. And that's a good thing in one way, but so many of those students, like at the graduate level, were one-year data analytics students. So they're in and they're out. So we're doing a deeper dive in how can we do a better job projecting what our return numbers will be. Our overall return numbers were really on par, but the mix of those students, undergraduate versus graduate, was slightly off. I'm sure Megan will tell you that affects the budget. But again, I think that information we're going to get from OIE is really important. Some of the other retention things that I think are important to know for our transfer students, our main campus transfer students persisted at just under 90%. So for transfer students, that's exceptionally good. But our online transfer students persisted at only 74.8%. So as we're working with the online readiness and the academic momentum group, we really need to pay particular attention to our online students. They are the growing population. So if we're losing them at 25%, we really need to shore up and get a little bit more deeper dive into what is the why behind that. And our Queensbury transfer students are retaining at 83%. So again, almost 7% less than the main campus students. So both of those really warrant a deeper dive as we're working on the academic. As the president referenced, our EOP students saw a substantial increase in their first to second year retention. They went up to 72.4%, which is a 10.2% improvement. So that is a really important group. But they are only 85. So they're up, but they're not going to have that biggest lift. I mean, for us, we want to make sure that all of our access and opportunity program students really retain. And to see that big jump is really wonderful. But we did see an overall persistence drop of males. We saw a reduction of 3.3%. And of the first year, full-time freshman males, they dropped by 5.5% to 67.1%. And that is versus the females who retained at 78.1%. So again, as we work on academic momentum, we have to always remember that retention is not a one size fits all, that we've got to start doing a deeper cross tabulation of criteria against it. So just to say men retain at a lower rate, but it's not all men. But white males dropped at 6.2%. That's very interesting. That it would not probably be the cohort many of you would think retained at a lower rate. So we have to really think about that because they are still a substantial contributor to the overall head count. So when you see a drop like that, really important. And the white males who were freshmen, we saw a 7.9% drop. So it warrants deeper information and figuring out who they are, where did they go, and the why behind that. That's very substantial. But our first generation students had an improvement of 1.7% improvement for our freshmen who were first generation, and our non-first generation students saw a retention improvement of 2.4%. So that's all really encouraging. Our pre-registrations for spring are flat year over year. And I feel good about that because last spring was a really strong spring. You know, we had well into the 90s of persistence from fall to spring, which is really great. I know a lot of people have reached out and Ann referenced it about the Cardinal Cupboard, but with all of the federal issues regarding SNAP, we have made consolidated efforts to make sure we had enhanced food options for our student at the Cardinal Cupboard. And then we also expanded our hours. We added more students from our Empire Service Corps so that we can keep our Cardinal Cupboard open even more substantially. We've seen over the semester clubs and organizations highly involved. We're now close to just 80 clubs and organizations, but with a finite number of student association dollars, you're not going to make them all happy, but we're doing our best. And then, you know, athletics had a good fall, but just last week, our women's soccer coach was named the SUNY coaching staff of the year. And one of our players on the women's soccer team was just named at the end of last week as the SUNY offensive player of the year. So our students are having success inside and outside the classroom. So more to come.
Any questions?
Just a quick question. When you lose an ELP student after year one to year two, how do you backfill that slot? I mean, do you then bank it for the next cycle?
It's not based on slots. We have to apply to SUNY each year for how many students we'll bring in. And so we're going through that process right now with SUNY. In the past, SUNY would just say, how many new students do you think you're going to have? And that would suffice. This year, I have to write a complete justification of why do I think that is the number for us? So, you know, the chancellor said last year that he was not happy with the number of students in EOP, that there were unfilled seats. So this year we set a goal for our campus to have 85 first year, but I told them they needed to bring in 100. We needed to have some wiggle room for summer no-shows to academy, students who couldn't make it academically after summer academy. And so we stuck to our standards and we wound up this fall having 91. So we were over our goal. But it's not like a backfill. So they set our numbers, but each year they give us our direct aid. And we have to create a direct aid plan to accommodate all the continuing students as well as the new students. So I wish it would be like, oh, if you lose one, you get extra. Doesn't work that.
Just one comment, imagine. People know this and whatever, the building bridges luncheon, I think is so key. I was so glad to see that. And, needless to say, I also firmly believe that more activities that we do with the school counselors, the directors of counseling, those are the people who are working with the kids. You know that, I know that, but a lot of people. So have something like that, oh, well, get the superintendent there, get 3 assistants there, they don't work with each other.
Director of admissions goes to those monthly North Country
Yes.
meetings now. And then with one of the new positions that we have in admissions, that person has a focus, thank you so much. Focus on the North Country and developing relationships with the area schools and principals and teachers and guidance counselors. So
Yeah, because it is the counselors who really, that's our job. You know, that final junior, senior year, what are you doing, where are you going? It's more communication you get from the colleges. And amazingly enough, and I'll just make one more statement. I've been out of it for a long time, so I went to 2 meetings and I met with some of I was asked to meet with the young counselors in coming to the school where I'd worked. And it hasn't changed. You know, it really hasn't. I mean, there's all the technology in the world, but what seems to work, according to those counselors from Clinton, Essex, Franklin, and we had people from Vermont that came to the meeting, was, you know, the school counselors thought as a kid, and taking them there. Anyway, thank you for that.
well, that's why the Building Bridges luncheon was so effective, because they were guidance counselors, the school counselors. And they were talking about where are they spending? They're spending less on their time on college placement, because there are so many overfeeders within the schools. And so, you know, they're really open for us to spend more time in the schools, which during COVID, that all got pulled back. So we're trying to get back up to pre-COVID level of interaction with the area.
So it's great, it really is. Thanks for that. And the last comment, and then I will not. I'm hoping that in this search, this mysterious search for people who are going to be put on our college council, that somebody looks for someone who has dealt with college career placement, dealing with high school students. I just obviously think it's an amazing piece of information that everyone needs when they're sitting on one of these boards. As if we don't get the students and retain them and make them successful. What are we here for? Anyway, thank you.
You were talking about the retention rates for first year freshman white male. Were they local North Country, do you know?
So that's one of the crosstabs. So I have it by region of the state. And so one of the things we've asked OIE for is that we need to start making the connections between the different groups. So is it our white males from North Country? Is it our white males from Long Island? Is it our white males who are out of state? Because we also saw a dip in our out of state students for retention. So that's the next part of work. And that's going to feed into a lot of our academic momentum work. Because again, we have to address what are the, you know, why are people like leaving? And that's, you know, to see drops, you know, in some of these cohorts, when you really look at the in-depth retention report, is where I see those as targets of opportunity. I know a lot of people see that as, oh, why are we focusing in on that? But we've got to really look at that and say, where are we missing? You know, is it an academic offering? Is it we don't have the sports team that they want? Is it that they couldn't handle it academically? Is it financial? Because one of the things the academic momentum group is, you know, we're looking at the gateway courses and we're looking at, you know, credit hours and things like that, but what's contributing to the success in all of those things? You know, because you could, for example, have a student who is meeting, you know, successfully passed their gateway courses, has 30 credits a semester, has done their FAFSA. Well, what if they have a mental health issue? Or what if they have a financial barrier? It doesn't matter if they hit all of those SUNY points. There's other things. So we're trying to take this approach of what is that holistic student support need to be? And I think that's what we're going to find when we delve in a little deeper on the very specifics of the retention rates.
And there are some very specific granular things we do in academic affairs. So I look at DEIW rates, so courses where students fail or get a D or withdraw. And although SUNY is newly asking us to pay attention to those for the Math and English Gateway, I look at those anyway for everything. And we've identified in academic affairs, with the help of the director of library, Joshua, the introduction to library skills course has a higher DEIW rate than other courses. So we're working on that with the faculty in library who teach that and with the general education committee who set that as a requirement. We also have our Cardinal Foundation seminar, the first course of core. Wendy Gordon and I have been working, and she was doing this with the before I arrived even, and we improved the DEIW rate significantly. So we went from 20% in 23-24 to 24-25, about 11%. So a really significant improvement because, it doesn't set you up for success and growth if you get a D or a fail or withdraw your first semester, right? So we're also trying to look at that. And again, the biggest bang for the buck is the first year courses.
How about the minorities? Do you see an increase?
Enrollment or retention? So for our underrepresented students, in some categories, they're retaining less, and in some categories. So it's very interesting. So that's one of the things that we were looking at is what is the distribution between male and female in the majority and the minority groups. So some have seen gains and some have seen some minor losses. So again, it's another really important point. And we just got this big stack of retention reports about 2 weeks ago. So we're really doing that dive into it. Our international students this year retained as the highest cohort as they normally do in first to second year rates, but that's a small number of them. So we're happy to see that the first to second year retention rate stayed really strong. The continuing numbers went down, but some of that had to do with the political climate.
Another question. I heard from some professors that freshmen, they don't, their English, they don't write well as previous students. How do you improve their writings?
So that's a very interesting question. I don't know, maybe Marcus, are you hearing from faculty that they're saying first year students don't write as well?
Well, yes, but I've also been hearing that for 30 years. I just had a second welcome event for first year faculty. We heard that again, but some of our faculty also come from, one of them came from the London School of Economics, one of the most selective universities in the world. So he was working with undergrads who were highly selective or being super prepared already, the finest tutors before they got there. In general, though, I think there certainly are changes with AI. It's one of the major things as we kind of wrestle, like all campuses do, with how do we help students to think critically, to reason, to learn how to write. And yet at the same time, if you ban AI, that's going to, that they're going to be using it anyway, right? And one of my challenges and opportunities is to try to push the faculty to be more assertive about changing the curriculum, which is under faculty control, rather than just having an AI policy statement where AI can be banned or AI can be used. So we're kind of getting there with an AI policy statement, but I don't think it's quite as assertive as I would like it to be. I see this as like calculators or spreadsheets, or which is going to change what we mean by, very good question of how are students prepared for writing. Because the nature of writing itself, I think, is fundamentally changing with generative AI and large language models. And will continue to do so in ways, in terms of what students will have in their careers, in the workplace, in the classroom, in ways that, where even the universities with the largest resources haven't figured out yet.
Thank you.
So there was an interesting conversation I had on Saturday with an English professor at the open house, and we spoke about writing and reading. He assigns readings to her first year students. one of the assignments is to circle 10 words that you've never seen before. And then present that back to the students were circling words like mingle. So the vocabulary is really reduced because there hasn't been enough reading going on. And so I think it's difficult to write well if you don't have a vocabulary you've not read enough. So I think there's a vicious circle here. And it was just, I just went, really? Because some of the students thought it was an antiquated world. Nobody uses that word anymore. She goes, yes, these are all words that we still use today. So there's a correlation between how much reading is going on and how well, right? So I was just surprised. So I said, thank you very much for doing those kinds of diagnostic tests because you're helping the students. And she's actually teaching them to, for example, the report, go through and just make little comments in the margin saying, it looks like SUNY Plattsburgh has a commitment. And you might say, well, commitment to who? So she's asking them to actually read critically at the same time. So I think, that Marcus is right. For 30 years or more, students have struggled to write. Foundational is educators are reading comes first, right? And you've got to read significantly to be able to be an effective writer. So that's our
exposure to all kinds of things rather than one topic. It just works better.
and this thing here. This is an evil device. I'm not gonna say it out loud because we're on recording, but if you spend your day scrolling and reeling, reading anything more than 6 or 7 words.
That's because what the text has done to grammatical English, just sickening. Somebody my age, that's for sure. It's just, hello, there's not a period, there's not. Can I make one more comment? I just wanted to also say, I love what the police department is doing. I think it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Kudos to whoever came up with all of those events. Just great stuff.
Just one follow-up on that question. When do we issue our clarity reports?
Annually, so they go out in the fall. We do our annual security report and clearing reports.
Is that on the website? Thank you.
The police outreach was on my list of things too. With the elimination of the Upward Bound program, what's happened with those students?
So, they're high school students. So, we continued some outreach to them. We do have their names. So those that were underclassmen, we put them into our funnel, for college admissions kinds of things. So we've done that. It's really hard because the kinds of programming that were funded by Upward Bound, we can't run trips for them to take them to colleges all around, the Northeast, which was a big part of it. So we'll see how we do with those that participated in the summer program last year, but we're continuing to cultivate them. Fortunately, one of the staff members on the administrative side from Upward Bound, she was just offered a position in my division. So she's coming to work for us starting Thursday. So we're happy we were able to do that. And Megan's been working very closely with the closeout of the grant because we had 60 years too of archived things and equipment and FF&E. They still think we're going to be able to bring it back. Don't think that's going to happen.
Well, on the high school level, it has created a hole, big hole in trying to get to these students who got so much help. And success was amazing. I used to carry on when I first came on this committee because I just finished working, with a whole group of kids. Yet it makes me speechless. Right.
And the other question I had is, you have 6 students studying abroad in spring. How does that number compare?
It's much lower than what it was, particularly pre-COVID. Part of it is it's not really necessarily financial. A lot of it is families and students are concerned about their safety around the world right now. So that is not, and for some majors, I'm going to use nursing as an example. It's hard to fit a study abroad. And so I think that when we have to start thinking more creatively, which is what the Director of Global Education is. How do we have short-term programs like in January? How do we have other short-term programs that can be faculty-led in June so that students can have that opportunity? And a lot of them being gone, like for an entire semester, seems too much for them right now. And they don't want to miss out on the other things that are here. And so it makes it very difficult. It's much more. It's much fewer than it was. So we're working on ways to how do we reinvigorate it? And rather than just looking at study abroad, we're trying to look at study away. How can we have more of our students participate in the National Student Exchange Program? Go to another university right here in the US. So we're trying to get people to think more broadly, think about studies. Because I think, for a student, if you're from the North Country and you go to a study away experience in Houston, Texas, for you, that may seem like a study abroad experience. So we're looking for those kinds of opportunities as well.
Okay. Megan?
So just a few highlights. We had our, this current fiscal year's budget approved by SUNY on September 8th. So those of you that remember, our year starts July 1. They approved our budget on September 18th. We also had a successful financial statement audit by KPMG. So SUNY as a whole gets audited every single year, but because of the size of SUNY in general, only a certain amount of campuses get selected for additional audit, and we were one of those. That's the first time in my career here that we've been selected for audit. So we had a clean audit, which makes me very happy. So that's very important. We've been doing a lot of work in the budget office, working very closely with our provost and provost cabinet to help provost cabinet effectively manage their budget. So me and our director of budget have been meeting on a regular basis with many people in academic affairs just to help answer any questions and have a more collaborative approach to that budget. As our president alluded to, we have many capital projects going on. So I think that's important to highlight too, because on any given day, I have a whole litany of things that people complain that needs to be done. So we have an aging campus, as many SUNY campuses are, and there's not enough funding to support the needs. But I think we're doing a really good job of accomplishing many things. So I think it's important to highlight that we're doing a lot of work in deferred maintenance and capital projects to, not only improve our infrastructure that nobody sees, but also to highlight things like a counseling center and more things like that. So we're kind of trying to navigate everybody's needs, the best we can with the concept we have and trying to get those projects accomplished in the time we have. The other thing that, I've tasked our director of facilities on really enhancing our preventive maintenance plan on this campus. That's something that maybe historically we haven't done the best at. So we are really making a conscious effort to do that. So one of the items here, you'll see campus cooling. This winter, we're doing some work on our cooling systems, which we haven't historically done. So that is trying to be more proactive, ensuring that when we turn these systems on, when the weather gets warmer, that they operate effectively. Now that might not seem important to you, but that is what I hear about. It's heating and cooling is the number one subject matter that I hear about. So it's very important to me and to everybody that this affects on campus. So we're just trying to be we're very good at being reactive. We just need to be a little bit more proactive. So that's just, and that will take many years to get to a very good place, but that work has started and I'm pretty happy about that. Other things that we're doing is we're doing an internal audit on our campus handbook. So that has not been looked at in some time. It's very tedious. It involves a lot of campus stakeholders, but it's really updating our campus handbook, which is very important because we evolve and change over time and our handbook should reflect that. So we started that process. It's probably going to take a year to do that work. A lot of people in this area are doing that work now, but I think it's important to highlight that as or I'm happy to answer.
Any questions, Jim?
Are most of our projects campus-led, or are they just?
There's a combination. So the big ones are through system, the smaller ones are campus-led, even the smaller ones are even minor. So we do have a pretty good portfolio of those things right now. So the big ones are the Algonquin project. That's a big dollar one, as well as demolishing banks in Adirondack. That's another big one. The Myers Yoakum Masonry project. That's a pretty big one. That's a fund as well. So those are the big ones that are being run by the fund currently.
And we're switching from Chartwell's to Sodexo.
We are switching from Chartwell's to Sodexo. I'm pretty excited about that. I think it's going to service our campus community, not just students, but students, faculty and staff in a better way. It's a better financial contract for us too, as well as better service contract. So that transition is going on right now. So Catherine Kelleher, our executive director of College Auxiliary Services, has done an extraordinary amount of work in this realm to get us to a better place with Sodexo.
What happens to the Chartwell staff? Do they
So
go over to?
yeah, most of them do. So all the hourly staff that our students see on a day-to-day basis are now under Sodexo, very unionized staff. Most of the managers will be held too. So there's a little bit of changes at the top level, but predominantly most of the staff are staying.
Any other questions? Thank you. All right, Charlotte here. So the Student Association President's Report is done. Take place, we don't have that. All right, we're up to public comment. Jim.
Yep. I think at the last meeting, I requested a report on the, what we'll call first destination report, and it's great. And what it does, and I don't think we're using it maybe as much as we should, because this presents absolute tangible proof of how well our students are doing. And many of them, their starting salaries are like $80,000 a year, and pretty impressive. And when the business school is not quite that high, maybe 55, 60. When I taught there, and I talked to Dr. Gabriel on, many are doing better than that. So every college will say they're welcoming. Every college will say it's a wonderful environment. Every college will say it's safe. Every college, there's a laundry list. But this is something different. This is a real number. And I think we should do more with this and try, because I think it would help us a great deal. The other thing too is, I think we should talk a little bit more about some of our successful graduates. Say, for example, we have Mayor Rosenquist over here. And we have Mr. Cashman, who now is in the assembly. And there's been a great number that have done that. And the only one thing that I find kind of annoying is when I look at SUNY Plattsburgh famous graduates, we get Anthony Weiner. Now, I don't know if God can resolve that, but anyway, if you could, that would be great, because I mean, it's just, every time I see that picture of him, I say, can't we put anybody in? I know we're not doing it. I know we're not pushing it. But anyways, this final destination report, I know parents come, they want to know if my son or daughter goes to school here. Once they get out, can they get a job? Can they get a good job? Do they pay a lot of money? And everybody else says, oh yeah, they're going to be happy and that everything's wonderful in Plattsburgh. The weather's perfect. Everybody says the same stuff. They can't say this. This is where we have a comparative advantage. We got to take that advantage and hammer it home.
So Jimmy, through the hard work of admissions and basically the open house, I do a very short introduction to all the families and the students. And one of my slides says 93%. And that is the number of our students that are employed, graduate school, or doing some sort of public service 6 months after graduation. And I say the words career ready 5 times through internships, because I know that, there's always a battle on campuses to whether we are vocational or whether we do this or that. I know in private conversations with parents, with their very important offspring, they want to know that their son or daughter or person they're caring for will get a job and be prepared to work. That's the primary purpose. And I have to be able to have data like that to say, yes, here's what's going on. I say our nurses are being paid incredible salaries. They skew those numbers that you just said. But we do a great job of that. And that's becoming more of the conversation that I have with parents.
I'm saying we have something we can really brag about, which a lot of other schools do not. So we should hammer that home as much as possible.
As I said to Jim before the meeting, you know, we incorporate the high points of that, you know, in our admissions marketing and you know, the career development has it on their site, and you have to be careful. And I appreciate what you just said. Most of the data is really good. But there's some majors where the data is not as strong. So I think we have to be careful about the balance message, you know, and in some areas you're gonna pull it, like nursing and med tech, whose average starting salaries are 78,000. That's a great like point of pride for their you know, for their web pages, but not all of them. So I think when we use the big numbers, you know, like 93% within 6 months are employed in graduate school or doing national service. The average starting salary is $55,000, you know, nurses in med tech starting salary 70. I think, you know, on our website, we have to highlight the bigger numbers. And also, you know, this is based on a number of students who report. But you know, we've expanded this report. It used to not really include graduate. Well, now I want to see graduate students and undergraduates. And I think the next step will be, you know, how do we have like online accounting versus main campus accounting? Because that also may be a point of pride for how you get more students into one or the other. So we have to leverage all of our data, absolutely.
Yeah, your teachers are not gonna start at 80,000, I can tell you that, even in this 2025. That's,
Well, no, not every.
That's gonna skew.
We are producing a lot.
that's why throwing out, yeah,
The
that's.
thing too is we have a lot of judges that have been, say, Gary Fabro is a federal magistrate in this area, and there's many others, and I just think that the things we do have, we ought to push.
Yep.
Don't forget Dawn Frantangelo.
Pardon me?
Dawn Frantangelo. Right? She's an alum.
Who is that?
She was news very prominent. I don't know if it was NBC. It was back in, there were 3 networks. Retired now, but she was a big name across the country.
So we had 3 people at once, didn't we? Well, again, so much older than you were, but we did. Don Frantangelo and the one that did the color for CNN and, well, never mind. But we did have 3 from Plattsburgh at the same time. I remember that. That's really, so.
Thank you. Okay, new business, or I guess old business, you were under public comment. Old business, any old business? Any new business? All right, then, as our next meeting is Monday, February 23rd, but hopefully, you'll all be able to attend graduation on December 13th. And I will take a motion to adjourn. Sid, second. Chris, all right, all in favor, I'm just with everybody, and we will retire to Yoakum Hall.
Yeah, we changed it to Kehoe, Heidi. The Yoakum parking lot is.
I went by there to see where I was gonna have to go.
Yeah.
So where are we going?
Bethany is going to meet us in front of the Kehoe.
All right, Evo. So search committee was going towards you. Say what's the same.
That.
Okay. Stay.